The orientation hall fell silent as Drill Commander Havrek entered through the main doors. 200 cadets from across the galaxy straightened their postures, some standing on 2 legs, others on 4, a few hovering above the floor entirely. The commander's scaled hide reflected the harsh overhead lights as he climbed onto the central platform. His species came from a world where gravity pulled twice as hard as standard, and every movement showed that brutal heritage. Danny Reeves sat in the back row between a massive Brassian whose shoulder reached Danny's eye level and a Kintari whose 4 arms kept fidgeting nervously. The human looked small by comparison, his frame lean rather than muscular, his skin pale under the fluorescent glow. He had arrived at the Galactic Defense Academy 3 days ago, the first human to attend in the program's 50-year history. Look at the statistics. Havrek's voice boomed across the chamber without amplification. 60% of you will fail within the first month. Another 20% will quit before graduation. Those who remain will become the finest warriors in known space. Danny listened carefully, taking mental notes. The Brassian beside him, who had introduced himself as Ren, leaned over and whispered, "This speech is meant to scare us. Do not let it work." But Danny was not scared. He was calculating. Back home in Denver, he had run cross-country in high school, competed in ultramarathons on weekends, spent summers hiking 14ers with a weighted pack. His father, a former Marine, had taught him that physical challenges were just puzzles written in sweat and discipline. "Your first test begins in 1 hour," Havrek continued. "The assessment course will measure your baseline capabilities. We will know what you are worth." The cadets filed out toward the training grounds, a vast complex of obstacles and measured tracks built into the Academy's central yard. Danny noticed how different species moved, cataloging their gaits and breathing patterns. The Thornak cadets wore their natural armor like tanks, slow but unstoppable. The Kintari moved with nervous energy, their multiple limbs giving them balance advantages. The Braxians simply bulldozed forward with raw-powered AT, the starting line. An instructor explained the course. 5 kilometers of varied terrain, including walls to climb, trenches to cross, and weight carries. Standard difficulty, nothing extraordinary. The cadets would run in mixed groups, species integrated to establish baseline comparisons. Danny stretched his calves and checked his boot laces. Ren watched him with curiosity. "You seem calm for someone from a one-gravity world." This course was designed for stronger species. "Strength is relative," Danny said simply. The starting signal fired, a sharp electronic tone that sent cadets surging forward. The Braxians took early leads, their powerful legs eating up distance. The Kintari followed close behind, using all 4 arms to scramble over the first wall obstacle. Danny settled into a comfortable pace, not fast but steady, his breathing controlled through his nose. The first 2 kilometers separated the field quickly. Low-gravity species began struggling, their bodies unaccustomed to the Academy planet's 1.3 standard pull. Danny maintained his rhythm, passing several faltering cadets without changing speed. His technique looked awkward to alien eyes, a 2-legged loping stride that seemed inefficient, but the distance kept disappearing beneath his feet. AT the weight carry station. Each cadet had to transport a species-appropriate load across 200 meters. Danny lifted his 40-kilogram pack, settled it onto his right shoulder, and started walking. Not running, just walking with that same steady pace. Other cadets sprinted with their loads, trying to minimize time under the burden. Danny treated it like a grocery trip. Ren finished his carry first, his Brassian strength making the task almost trivial. He waited at the end, watching Danny approach. "Why do you not run? You're losing time." "Am I?" Danny set down his pack exactly at the line, then pointed back at the course. Several cadets who had sprinted were now bent over, gasping, their bodies demanding recovery time. Danny's breathing had not changed at all. The final kilometer included a trench crawl under netting, then a sprint to the finish. Danny moved through the mud efficiently, keeping low, using his flexibility to navigate where larger species had to force their way through. When he emerged and ran the last 200 meters, His time placed him in the middle third of all finishers. Not impressive by the numbers, but he crossed the line looking like he could do it again immediately. The instructors made notes on their data pads. One of them, a veteran named Cross, flagged Danny's performance for review. Something about the human's physiology was worth studying. The efficiency of movement, the controlled breathing, the complete lack of panic or rush. It reminded Cross of pursuit predators from his own homeworld, animals that did not chase prey by outrunning it, but by never stopping. That evening in Barracks 7, Danny met his squad properly. Rin, the Brassian, had claimed the reinforced bunk designed for heavy worlders. Tilla, the four-armed Kintari, arranged her sleeping area with nervous precision. 3 other species rounded out the group, including a Thornak named Gret who spoke rarely but watched everything. Tomorrow we get our training assignments, Tilla said, her translator converting her clicking speech into standard language. I heard the physical requirements increase each week. Good, Danny said, unlacing his boots to examine his feet. No blisters, no significant wear. I did not come here for easy. Ren laughed, a deep rumbling sound. You are either very brave or very stupid, human. This academy breaks warriors who are born strong. Danny smiled as he lay back on his bunk. Then it is fortunate I was not born strong. I was born stubborn. Outside the barracks window, the academy's main notice board updated with the next challenge. Weekly Crucible, it read. Load march. Distance. Until failure. Mandatory participation. Danny read it twice, then closed his eyes. Until failure. He wondered if the instructors understood that humans had spent millions of years redefining what that word meant. Dawn broke across the academy grounds in shades of purple and orange, the planet's twin suns creating shadows that stretched like fingers across the assembly field. 200 cadets stood in formation, each wearing their species-specific field gear and carrying standard-issue packs. The weight inside those packs had been calibrated to challenge every physiology equally, 40 kilograms adjusted for body mass and gravity tolerance. Danny adjusted the straps on his shoulders, testing the distribution. The pack sat high on his back, military style, the way his father had taught him during their training hikes in the Rockies. Around him, cadets shifted nervously, their various appendages twitching with anticipation or dread. Havrek walked down the line, his boots crunching on gravel. The load march is tradition. Every class endures it. Every warrior remembers it. You will walk until your bodies fail. The route is marked. Medical transports will collect those who fall. There is no shame in reaching your limit. Danny caught that last part, turned it over in his mind. No shame in reaching your limit. The phrasing assumed everyone had the same kind of limits, the same relationship with exhaustion. He had learned differently during a 100-mile race through Colorado's mountains, somewhere around mile 70, when his crew chief had asked if he wanted to quit. His answer then applied now. Quitting required a decision, and he had decided differently. Begin, Havrek commanded. The mass of cadets moved forward like a slow avalanche, spreading out as faster walkers pulled ahead and cautious ones fell behind. The route led into the foothills beyond the academy, a trail that climbed gradually but relentlessly into the mountain range. The planet's 1.3 gravity made every step slightly harder than Earth normal, a constant pressure that turned simple walking into work. Ren moved alongside Danny for the first few kilometers, his breathing steady, his massive legs covering ground efficiently. How do you feel, human? Fine, Danny said, and meant it. His heart rate had elevated to a comfortable working rhythm, his muscles warm and loose. The pack's weight was noticeable but manageable, distributed properly across his frame. He was breathing through his nose, a technique his cross-country coach had drilled into him. If you can breathe through your nose, you can keep going indefinitely. By kilometer 10, the first casualties began. 3 Kintari cadets stumbled to the side of the trail, their forearms trembling from sustained exertion. A medical transport dropped from the sky, collected them with efficient sympathy, and departed. The remaining cadets walked past without comment, eyes forward, minds focused on their own survival. The temperature climbed as the suns rose higher. Danny felt sweat building on his forehead, running down his back beneath the pack. His shirt was already damp, his body's cooling system engaging fully. Around him, other species struggled with heat in different ways. The Braxian scales lost their luster as internal temperatures rose. The Thornak cadets slowed noticeably, their armored hides excellent for protection, but terrible for heat dissipation. At the 15-kilometer mark, there was a brief water stop. Cadets drank from their canteens, some collapsing to the ground for precious seconds of rest. Danny drank sparingly, staying on his feet, keeping his muscles engaged. Sitting down meant having to stand up again, and standing up cost energy. "You have not switched your pack position," Tilla observed, her forearms wrapped around her own burden. Her translator voice sounded strained. Danny glanced at his right shoulder where the pack's main strap rested. "Not yet. I will switch when this side gets tired." "When?" Tilla's large eyes showed confusion. "How do you know when?" "I will know," Danny said simply. The human body was excellent at communicating fatigue. The question was whether you listened to the first complaint or waited for the serious warnings. They continued. Kilometer 20 arrived with the temperature hitting 42 degrees. Cadets were dropping in groups now, their bodies reaching calculated limits and shutting down protective systems. The trail was littered with sitting figures waiting for medical pickup, their expressions mixing relief and shame. Ren was still walking, but his breath came in harsh gasps. "This is harder than the briefing suggested. They probably say that every year," Danny replied. His own breathing remained controlled, his pace unchanged from kilometer 1. He had found his rhythm, that sweet spot between effort and sustainability that ultramarathon runners knew intimately. His body was complaining, sending signals about heat and fatigue and the weight on his back, but none of those signals indicated actual damage. Just discomfort. Discomfort was information, nothing more. Kilometer 22. Danny switched his pack from his right shoulder to his left. The movement was smooth, practiced, taking less than 5 seconds. The relief on his right side was immediate, and the fresh muscles on his left took the load without issue. An instructor in a hovering observation craft noticed the switch, marked it on their datapad. In the craft, cross-reviewed the human's vital signs transmitted from a biometric patch. Heart rate elevated but stable. Core temperature high, but within species norms. Hydration levels acceptable. The data showed effort, but not distress. "The human is performing better than expected," Cross said to his colleague. "Better than expected for a one-gravity species," the other instructor replied. "But we have 40 Braxians still walking. 20 Thornak. The human is unremarkable." Cross did not argue, but he kept watching. Something about the human's movement pattern suggested this was not close to failure. This was just the beginning. Danny walked on as the trail grew steeper. Behind him, Tilla finally stopped, her forearms unable to support the pack any longer. Ren made it another kilometer before his legs simply refused to continue. Each time a squad mate fell, Danny paused long enough to make sure medical assistance arrived, then continued forward. The group of walking cadets grew smaller. 30 left, then 25. The suns climbed higher, the heat intensified, and the trail showed no mercy. Danny's shirt was soaked completely now, his body pouring sweat to manage core temperature. He was thirsty, tired, and aware of every muscle in his legs, but aware was not the same as unable. Tired was not broken, and the trail kept going, so he kept walking. Kilometer 30 arrived with a changed landscape. The trail had climbed into genuine mountain territory now, the air thinner, the rocks sharper underfoot. 20 cadets remained walking, spread out in a ragged line along the path. The observation craft followed overhead like patient vultures, their cameras recording everything for Academy archives. Danny's legs had moved past tired into a state of mechanical automation. Each step was a repetition of the last, his brain running on a loop of simple commands. Lift foot, swing forward, plant heel, transfer weight, repeat. His training had taught him that the body could continue long after the mind grew bored with the process. Ahead of him, A Brassian named Gorth was visibly struggling. The massive cadet's breathing sounded like a damaged engine, rough and irregular. His scales had dulled completely, and his pace had slowed to barely faster than Danny's steady rhythm. Pride kept him moving, the knowledge that his entire species would hear about this day, about who quit and who endured a T-kilometer 32. One of the Kintari cadets collapsed mid-step. All four arms gave out simultaneously, dropping the cadet face first into the trail. Medical response was immediate, a transport dropping and medics swarming to check vital signs. Danny walked past as they loaded the unconscious cadet, noting the dilated pupils and shallow breathing. Heat exhaustion, probably severe. He switched his pack back to his right shoulder. Second switch. The weight felt heavier now, the straps digging into muscles that had already been working for hours. But heavier did not mean impossible. It just meant harder, and harder was relative that I in the observation craft. Cross was reviewing accumulated data with growing interest. The human had maintained the same pace for 33 kilometers. Not fast, but absolutely consistent. While other species showed degrading performance curves, the human's vitals displayed a flat line of sustained effort. Heart rate elevated but stable. Breathing regular. Core temperature managed through continuous sweating. Pull up human evolutionary data. Cross told the ship's computer. Specifically, hunting methods. The files appeared on his screen. Persistence hunting. Humans from Earth's African plains who would chase prey animals for hours, sometimes days, until the prey collapsed from exhaustion. The prey might be faster, stronger, better adapted to the heat. But humans had sweat glands, bipedal efficiency, and most importantly, they had patience. Commander, Cross opened a channel to Havrek. I believe we have underestimated this species. The human is still walking, Havrek replied. So are 15 others. What is your point? My point is that the others are reaching their limits. The human has not reached his beginning yet. The trail grew steeper. 35 kilometers. A Thornak cadet sat down heavily, armor scraping against rock, and simply did not stand back up. The medical team arrived. 14 cadets left. Then 13 as another Braxian's legs gave out completely, muscles locked in cramps that Danny's world had narrowed to the trail ahead and the rhythm of his breathing. He was thirsty despite drinking regularly, his body's cooling system demanding more water than he could replace. His shoulders ached with the pack straps rubbed. His feet were developing blisters inside his boots, hot spots that would become problems later. Later. That was the key word. Later was not now. Now he was walking, and he could walk now. So later did not matter. That T 40 kilometers, something changed in the quality of attention from the remaining cadets. The ones still moving began glancing back at Danny with expressions that ranged from confusion to something approaching fear. He had become a reference point, a measure they could not understand. Species with natural advantages, bodies built for exactly this kind of punishment, were falling away. The human just kept walking to a VRYN cadet. Nametel moved alongside Danny. The VRYN came from a desert world with higher gravity and temperatures that regularly exceeded 50 degrees. They were built for endurance in harsh conditions. Tel should have been dominating this march. Instead, he was studying the human like a puzzle. Your breathing has not changed, Tel observed, his translator rendering the clicking sounds into standard language. Danny glanced over, maintaining his pace. Should it? You have walked 40 kilometers in 42-degree heat, carrying 40 kilograms. Your breathing should be labored. It is, Danny said. But labored does not mean I need to breathe faster. Just deeper. Tel process this. You're not trying to go fast. You are trying to not stop. Yes, this is your strategy. Danny switched his pack to his left shoulder. Third switch. This is not strategy. This is just what my body does. At kilometer 42, another Brassian fell. Gorth, who had been fighting pride and physiology for the last 10 kilometers, finally lost the battle. His legs simply stopped supporting his weight, and he crashed into the trail like a toppled statue. As the medical team moved in, Gorth grabbed Danny's ankle as the human walked past. How? The word came out as a rasp. Danny paused, looked down at the exhausted warrior. My ancestors chased antelope across savannas until the antelope's hearts exploded from heat. 42 kilometers is just a warm-up in my genetic memory. He gently pulled his ankle free and continued. Behind him, Gorth watched the human's back with an expression that would have been impossible to describe in any language. It was the look of someone whose fundamental understanding of physical capability had just been rewritten. 12 cadets remained on the trail. The suns were past zenith now, beginning their slow descent toward evening, but the heat had not lessened. If anything, the rocks radiated stored warmth, turning the trail into a corridor of thermal punishment. Danny walked on. His pace had not changed. His breathing remained controlled. His body was doing what millions of years of evolution had designed it to do, converting stored energy into forward motion with relentless efficiency. He was not the strongest. He was not the fastest. But he was still walking, and that was becoming the only statistic that mattered. The 45-kilometer marker was a simple post driven into the trail's edge, numbers painted in reflective material. 9 cadets passed it, their numbers reduced from 200 to a handful of survivors. Each remaining walker represented the peak of their species' physical capability, bodies bred or evolved for exactly this kind of trial. And then there was Danny, whose only advantage was that his species had never learned when to quit. The observation craft had grown crowded. Instructors who were off-duty had joined to watch, their professional interest transforming into something deeper. They were witnessing a fundamental challenge to their assumptions about capability and limitation. The Academy's entire philosophy rested on finding each species' breaking point, then training them to push slightly beyond it. But what happened when a species did not have a conventional breaking point? His core temperature should be critical, the medical officer stated, reviewing the biometric data. He has been sweating for 6 hours. Dehydration alone should have stopped him. He is still drinking. Cross noted, watching Danny take careful sips from his canteen at the 46-kilometer rest point. Small amounts, regularly. He is managing resources. That is not strategy. That is instinct, another instructor said. Look at his movements. He is not thinking anymore. His body is just doing. They were correct. Danny had passed into a state ultrarunners called the forever zone, where conscious thought became unnecessary and the body simply continued its task. His mind was quiet, empty of everything except the trail ahead and the simple mechanical process of walking. Lift foot, swing forward, plant heel, transfer weight. Breathe in, breathe out. Repeat until the trail ends or the body fails, whichever comes first. The 47 kilometers, a Thornak cadet stopped walking and sat down with careful deliberation. Not collapsed, not defeated, but consciously choosing to end participation. The medics approached, but the cadet waved them back for a moment. Instead, the Thornak watched Danny pass, studying the human's gait, the steady breathing, the mechanical precision of movement. Your species is dangerous, the Thornak said simply. Danny heard the words but did not respond. Response required thought, and thought required energy he was directing elsewhere. He switched his pack to his right shoulder. Fourth switch. The movement was automatic now, his body performing maintenance. Without conscious input. 8 cadets remained. At 48 kilometers, another Brassian fell, muscles seizing completely. The medical team moved with practiced efficiency, loading the unconscious cadet while the others continued past. 7. Then 6 as a Kintari cadets, 4 arms, all cramped simultaneously, sending the cadet tumbling to the rocky ground. In the observation craft, Commander Havrek was having a quiet crisis of understanding. He had built his career on recognizing warriors, on identifying the qualities that separated elite fighters from ordinary soldiers. Strength mattered. Speed mattered. Intelligence and courage and tactical thinking all mattered. But he was watching something that did not fit his categories. The human was not winning through superiority in any traditional measure. The human was winning through simple, stubborn refusal to acknowledge limits. Should we stop this? The medical officer asked. We are in uncharted territory. No one has gone beyond 50 kilometers. The cadets are still moving, Havrek said. If we stop them now, we learn nothing. At 50 kilometers, history was made and immediately discarded. The Academy record, 50 years of classes and thousands of cadets, was broken. But no one celebrated because 5 cadets were still walking, and the human had not even acknowledged the milestone. To Danny, 50 kilometers was just another number, no different from 49 or 51. The trail continued, so he continued. Tel was still moving beside him, the VRWin's natural advantages now completely exhausted. His species could survive in environments that would kill most others, but survival and sustained exertion were different challenges. He was running on pure will now, his body's reserves depleted, his muscles operating on borrowed time. I need to understand, Tel said between labored breaths. What drives you? What keeps you moving? Danny's response was automatic, words formed without thought. Nothing drives me. I am just not stopping. There must be a reason. Pride? Duty? Competition? No reason. Stopping requires a decision. I have not decided. Tel absorbed this, and something in the simplicity broke through his exhaustion into clarity. The human was not enduring. The human was not suffering through this trial. The human was simply existing in it, the same way a fish exists in water or a bird in air. This was what the human body did when you pointed it down a trail and did not give it permission to stop at T53 kilometers. 2 more cadets fell within 100 meters of each other. 4 remained. The trail had become a test of something beyond physical capability now. It was a test of philosophy, of how different species conceptualize limitations and failure. Danny switched his pack to his left shoulder. 5th switch. The straps had worn grooves into his muscles, painful points of contact that sent sharp signals with every step. His feet were definitely blistered now, probably bleeding inside his boots. His legs ached with an intensity that would have stopped him on any normal day. But this was not a normal day. This was a day when quitting had consequences beyond personal failure. Every step he took was writing a new definition of what humans could do, creating a baseline that would affect how his entire species was viewed by the galaxy. So he kept walking, and the pain was just information, and information could be noted and then ignored at T55 kilometers. A VRYNN cadet besides Tel collapsed. 3 remained. Tel himself was hallucinating now, talking to people who existed only in his oxygen-starved brain. A Brassian named Court was moving through pure stubbornness, his body having exhausted every rational reason to continue. And Danny walked on, his pace unchanged from kilometer 1, his breathing still controlled, his body still doing what millions of years had designed it to do. He was not special. He was not superhuman. He was just human, and for the first time, the galaxy was learning what that actually meant. 58 kilometers marked the point where reality became flexible for everyone still walking. Tel was having complete conversations with figments, his brain constructing entire scenarios to distract from the physical collapse happening throughout his body. Court was not hallucinating, but his vision had tunneled down to just a few meters of trail directly ahead, everything else fading into irrelevant blur. Danny was experiencing his own form of altered consciousness, though different from the others. He had entered a state he recognized from his longest races, where time became meaningless and distance was just a continuous present moment. He was not walking 58 kilometers. He was just walking, had always been walking, would always be walking. Past and future collapsed into the eternal now of 1 foot in front of the other in the observation craft. An argument was developing between the medical officer and Commander Havrek. The medic wanted to end this immediately, citing dangerous vital signs and risk of permanent damage. Havrek was watching something unprecedented and refused to interrupt it. Look at the data, the medical officer insisted. Tel's core temperature is critical. Court's muscle tissue is breaking down. Even the human is showing signs of severe fatigue. But they're still walking, Havrek said quietly. If we stop them now, we rob them of knowing their true limits. We might rob them of their lives. Cross interrupted. The human's vitals are concerning but stable. Elevated, yes. Dangerous, potentially. but stable. His body is managing the stress. On the trail below, Danny switched his pack to his right shoulder. Sixth switch. The movement took longer this time, his fingers clumsy with fatigue, but he completed it and continued walking. His breathing was still through his nose, still controlled. Still that same rhythm he had maintained since kilometer 1. Tell noticed the switch, and something inside him broke. Not his body. Well, that was failing too. What broke was his conceptual framework for understanding physical limitations. He had trained his entire life for endurance. His species was built for it, evolved for it, celebrated it as their primary virtue. And this human, this creature from a moderate world with no particular adaptations, was treating a death march like a casual stroll. I cannot continue, Tell said aloud, though whether to himself or Danny or the universe was unclear. His next step did not come. His body had finally overruled his will, shutting down movement to prevent catastrophic failure. He stood swaying for a moment, then toppled sideways like a cut tree. Medical response was immediate. The transport dropped, teams swarming to stabilize the VR-Winend's collapsing systems. As they worked, Tell managed to grab Danny's leg as the human walked past. His grip was weak, barely noticeable, but Danny stopped. "Your world," Tell whispered, his translator barely catching the words. "It must be hell." Danny looked down, his expression distant, thoughts struggling through exhaustion to form words. "Earth made us ready for anywhere else." He gently stepped free of Tell's grip and continued. The medical team watched him go, their professional assessment mixing with something deeper. They had seen warriors from 100 species, bodies built for war and hardship and survival. But this was different. This was not a warrior. This was just a human doing what humans did. And apparently what humans did was never stop. Point 2 cadets remained on the trail now. Danny and Court. The Brassian was massive, powerful, built for exactly this kind of punishment. But his species had limits, carefully evolved limits designed to prevent self-destruction. Those limits were screaming at him now, demanding he stop, warning that permanent damage was approaching. Danny had limits too, but they were different. Human limits were suggestions, negotiable boundaries that could be pushed if the stakes were high enough. And his subconscious had decided, without consulting his conscious mind, that the stakes here were infinite. Every step was writing the definition of humanity for species that had never met one before. At T 60 kilometers, Court stopped. Not collapsed, not defeated, but stopped with conscious deliberation. He turned to face Danny, his scaled face showing something between respect and incomprehension. "I yield," Court said formally. "You have won, human. I cannot match you." Danny heard the words, but they took several seconds to process. One? This was not a competition. There were no winners. There was just a trail and walking and continuing until the trail ended or his body failed completely. "Okay," Danny said, the word emerging automatically. Court waited, perhaps expecting more, but Danny just walked past him. The Brassian stood watching for a moment, then sat down heavily to wait for medical pickup. He would tell this story for the rest of his life. About the day he went further than any cadet in Academy history and still came in second to a human. The observation craft landed ahead of Danny at 62 kilometers. Commander Havrek and the senior instructors stepped out, forming a line across the trail. Danny saw them, but did not understand what it meant. His brain was operating on minimal power now, all available energy directed to the simple task of continuing movement. "Cadet Reeves," Havrek's voice cut through the fog. "You have exceeded every expectation. You have rewritten Academy records. You may stop now with full honors." The words filtered through Danny's consciousness slowly. Stop. He could stop. Permission granted. His body seized on the idea immediately, every system voting enthusiastically for cessation of movement. But something in his training, some deeply embedded instruction from his father or his coaches or his own experience, asked a different question. "Sir," Danny's voice was rough, words scraped from a dry throat. "Where's the finish line?" The instructors exchanged glances. Havrek's expression was unreadable. There is no finish line, cadet. This test is designed to find breaking points, not destinations. Danny processed this information through multiple layers of exhaustion. No finish line. The test was to walk until failure. He had not failed yet. Therefore, the test was not complete. Sir, if there is no finish line, then I have not finished. He adjusted his pack and took a step forward. The instructors did not move, blocking his path. Commander Havrek placed a hand on Danny's shoulder, the gesture gentle despite the Braxian's massive strength. The human swayed slightly under even that light touch, his body's balance systems compromised by extreme fatigue. But his eyes were clear, focused on the trail ahead, waiting for the obstacle to move. Cadet Reeves, you have proven your point. Your species has no conventional breaking point. We understand now. Havrek's voice carried respect that had not been there at the start of the day. You may stop. Danny heard the words, processed them through layers of exhaustion and automatic movement patterns. May stop. Permission granted. But permission was different from requirement, and nothing in his training had taught him to accept permission when the mission was incomplete. Sir, with respect, the parameters were until failure. I have not failed. Cross stepped forward, his datapad showing real-time biometrics. Cadet, your body is in severe distress. Core temperature is critical. Dehydration is advanced. Your muscle tissue is beginning to break down. Continuing could cause permanent damage. Could, Danny repeated, latching onto the word. Not will, just could. The instructors had encountered stubbornness before, had dealt with prideful cadets who pushed too far and paid the price. But this was different. This was not pride or proving anything. This was simply a human doing what humans did, treating limits as optional suggestions rather than absolute boundaries. If I order you to stop, Havrek asked, that cut through the fog. Orders were different. Danny's father had been military, had raised him with clear understanding of command structure. Orders were not suggestions or permissions. Orders were absolute. Then I stopped, sir. Havrek nodded slowly. I'm ordering you to stop, Cadet Reeves. This test is concluded. Something in Danny's posture changed. A fundamental shift from forward motion to stillness. His body accepted the command, began the process of shutting down movement systems that had been operating for 7 hours straight. He swayed again, more pronounced this time, and Cross moved to steady him. How far could you have gone? The instructor asked, genuine curiosity in his voice. Danny considered the question seriously, checking internal systems the way he had learned during ultramarathons. His legs still responded to commands, though sluggishly. His cardiovascular system was stressed but functional. His mind was foggy but present. He ran calculations based on remaining water, estimated calorie reserves, current deterioration rate. Another 30 kilometers, he said finally. Maybe 40 if I had to. The instructor stared. Tell had collapsed at 58 kilometers after pushing his species' optimized endurance to absolute limits. Cord had yielded at 60 after going further than any Brassian in Academy history. And the human was casually suggesting he could have doubled that distance. You are serious, Havrek said, not quite a question. Yes, sir, though I would have needed to slow down. Maybe walk-run intervals instead of straight walking. Walk-run intervals, Cross repeated, his translator ensuring he had heard correctly. After 62 kilometers, you would have run. Just short sections, to keep the muscles from locking up completely. The medical team arrived then, their scanners confirming what the biometric data had been showing. Severe dehydration, elevated core temperature, muscle fatigue approaching critical levels, blistering on both feet. Any single factor would have stopped most species. Combined, they should have been incapacitating. We need to get him to medical immediately, the lead medic stated. Danny shook his head, the movement making the world tilt dangerously. I can walk there. No, Havrek said firmly. You have walked enough for one day. Accept the transport. It was phrased as permission, but carried the weight of command. Danny nodded and let them guide him to the medical shuttle. As it lifted off, he looked down at the trail, at the 62 kilometers he had covered, and the unknown distance he could have continued. Part of him, the part that had run hundreds of miles through Colorado mountains, was disappointed not to find out exactly how far he could go. The medical bay became his home for the next 18 hours. For fluids, muscle relaxants, treatment for the blisters that had indeed worn through skin on both feet. The medical staff treated him with a mixture of professional efficiency and scientific fascination. They had never worked on a human before, had to reference uploaded medical databases for baseline vitals and treatment protocols. When Danny finally woke fully, cleared for release, he found his barracks squad waiting outside the medical bay. Rin, Tilla, Gret, all the cadets who had fallen at various points along the trail. They stood at attention as he emerged, a formal gesture of respect. "You have changed everything," Rin said simply. Danny did not understand. "I just finished the test." "No." Tilla's four arms gestured emphatically. "You redefine what finishing means. The Academy has already updated training protocols. New classifications for human physical standards. We have to recalibrate everything we thought we knew about endurance." Over the following days, as Danny returned to normal training, the story spread through the Academy and beyond. The human who walked 62 kilometers when everyone else had fallen. The cadet who asked where the finish line was when told he could stop. The species that did not understand the concept of physical limitations. 3 weeks later, during a standard morning formation, Commander Havrek made an announcement. The load march will continue as Academy tradition, but the route now has a defined endpoint at 40 kilometers. We have learned that some species do not have the sense to stop on their own. The assembled cadets laughed, but there was respect in it. Danny stood in formation, his body fully recovered, already thinking about the next challenge. Around him, cadets from a dozen species looked at the human differently now. Not with fear exactly, but with understanding. Humans were not the strongest, not the fastest, not the most armored or adapted or naturally gifted. But they had something more dangerous than any physical advantage. They had millions of years of evolution teaching them that limits were just a starting point, that impossible was just a suggestion, and that the only real failure was deciding to stop. The galaxy was going to have to recalculate what that meant.